Hello, my name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. We're going to do a tune today and you can print the music out to this tune by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel and you'll see a link to a PDF there. Today we're going to do some jig playing. I would like to do a four-parted jig with you. It's called Donald McKillop, and it was written by pipe major Sandy Hain. Sandy lived from 1929 to 2018. He grew up in a family of military pipers in Scotland and then became one himself. He joined the Black Watch Regiment as a young man, and in 1951 he went to Edinburgh Castle to take the pipe major's course under the great pipe major Willie Ross. Sandy subsequently emigrated from Scotland to the Cleveland area, where he became a huge influence on piping in Ohio and in that part of the United States. This is a four-parted jig, as I said. Whether it's easy or difficult kind of depends on how well you can play E strikes, because there are a lot of them. I would rank this tune in level of difficulty as somewhere between intermediate and difficult. So, let's start by hearing the jig Donald McKillop played in its entirety on a Dager electronic chanter. That tune was played at about 116 beats per minute. Generally, jigs range between maybe 110 at the slowest to 126 at the fastest. The optimum range for jig playing is probably between 112 and 120. As I always say in these videos though, don't play faster than your technique can manage. If you practice this jig at a tempo where your technique is not very good, you'll get very good at not playing very well. So always play at a tempo where you can manage the technique and then work up from there. I'd like to go through the tune part by part, but before that, let's have a look at the whole score. The first thing I would like you to notice is that the tune is made up mostly of eighth notes, and there isn't a dot on any of them. The only dots appear after quarter notes. So the eighth notes in this jig are played evenly, perfectly round. We do not point the first note in each group of three. You'll also notice, especially in the first part, a lot of G, D, E grace note patterns. Some of these are played with tocums in the middle of them. In order to play jigs well, your dead round GDEs have to be automatic. I have a video on this channel on playing GDEs in jig time, and I strongly recommend you watch it before you watch this video. We're also going to see that strikes on E, B, and C are important in this tune, and I have lots of strike exercises in my Rhythmic Fingerwork technical tutor to help you with this. So, GDEs and strikes are the order of the day in Donald McKillop. Starting with the first part, let's look at bar 1. If you can play this bar well, you have half the tune mastered. GDEs are so important in this tune. Here we have a GDE on low A, followed immediately by a GDE from C to low A with a tockum. Even though those three notes are constructed differently in each case, you're going to play the GDE exactly the same way both times. Do not point the first note in the GDE. One thing to watch for when you play GDEs, aside from not pointing the first one, is to make sure that you don't crush them. Don't play. They need to be measured and spaced and fill out the space within the beat. Now we move on to bar 2, and here we have two of the pitfalls of Donald McKillop. We have a D grace note being played from low A up to C, which is very tricky at 116 or 120 beats per minute. And we have an E strike. Very important when you play the low A to C pattern with a G grace note that you don't get a crossing noise between the low A and the C. This low A to C with the D grace note pattern is all over this tune, so make sure it is clean. In the second half of this bar is an E strike. All of the strikes in this tune will be played in similar fashion. Make sure you don't crush the note before the strike. Not. So bar 2. In bar 4, we have another strike. This one is on B. The rest of the bar is the same as the bar we just did. Bar 4. Big note before the B. We have another strike in bar 7 near the end of the part. All of your strikes need to be played with a nice open note before the strike. Now, I'd like to go back to bars 1 and 2 again. In addition to all the other things I've told you about these bars, I want you to do one more thing. I want you to wait as long as you can before you play any of the G grace notes. It's crucial not to hit any of these G grace notes early. Stay true to the beat, but the cardinal sin in jig playing is to play ahead of the beat. Wait for that grace note. It really helps to generate rhythm. We can't generate rhythm by holding the first note in the group of 3. We generate by getting to that note as late as possible. Something like this. Wait for that G grace note. Wait for the first note in each group of 3. Okay, let's hear the first part of Donald McKillop played on a practice chair. In the second part, we're immediately faced with 2 quarter notes with dots on them. In a fashion typical of jigs and 6/8 marches, we're going to play those 2 dotted quarter notes as long as we possibly can. Really milk them for their full value. When we get playing GDEs and 8th notes at a rapid speed, often when we hit the quarter notes, we tend to slough over them. The contrast between the even 8th notes and the held out quarter notes is key. So really hold out the quarter notes, something like this. One thing we haven't discussed yet is the ending. The ending appears 8 times, and as a result, sometimes we can get a little bit lazy about the ending and not focus on playing it as musically and rhythmically as we should. It has a GDE with a tockum in the middle, followed by a burl. Again, don't rush the GDE, don't hit the burl early. When you play the burl, the first strike in the burl is on the beat. Something like this. Try to avoid that's rushed. Play the ending on the beat and play every single one of them on the beat. Okay, that's the second part. Let's go through and hear the whole second part on the practice channel. The third part of this tune is D grace note City. We play a D grace note from low A up to C 9 times when we play this part once. When we play the part twice, we're playing it 18 times. So you want to make sure your low A to C with the D grace note is clean and accurate. The rest of the part, we've talked about every element of it. Let's hear the third part on the practice channel. If the third part was D grace note City, the fourth part is E strike City. There are 8 E strikes played one time through the part, 16 E strikes when you play the part twice. Also a strike on C and a couple of strikes on B. So your strikes need to be good in the last part of this tune, especially your E strikes. 2 things will jeopardize your E strikes. One, if you've never really practiced them, you need to play them a little bit and get that hitting action on the chanter strong and controlled. The second thing that will jeopardize your E strikes is if you play ahead of the beat. If you play in a pushed fashion and hit the E strikes early, you'll find you tend to miss them. One of the great ways to make all your strikes in this part is to make sure you're playing perfectly on the beat. Strikes tend to make us rush a little bit, and when we rush, we miss strikes. Hold back on each group of 3 and open the note before the strike. Okay, let's hear the whole fourth part played in the practice channel. I've talked a lot about rhythm and about playing on the beat in this video. I talk a lot about rhythm and playing on the beat in all of my videos. Playing on the beat in jigs is really crucial. If people in the audience aren't tapping your foot, you're not doing your job. One of the ways to generate rhythm, or to learn how to generate rhythm, is to use a metronome. If you've never played with a metronome before, it can be a little bit disconcerting. It's a skill to be acquired. Once you acquire that skill, you'll find the metronome helps you to play rhythmically, and it helps you to maintain your tempo. So for example, if I'm working on Duncan McKillop, and I'm still at a very slow stage, but I'm trying to play on the beat and hit everything where I should. Might sound something like this. This is at 90 beats per minute. That's playing to the metronome. As I say, it takes a little bit of practice. One other wee point to make about Donald McKillop. This tune has been published, I believe, more than once under the name Duncan McKillop. I've spoken to Sandy Hain, the composer, and he has assured me that the tune is called Donald McKillop. So, that's it for Donald McKillop, the jig. Good luck playing a jig. From me, Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box. Good piping.